Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar to discuss payroll data validation testing for Oracle HCM clients and payroll customers. Today we have Lavanya Salagundala, who is Head of Test Engineering with Soneratech, and if you've attended a webinar before, you're a new face. Harish Kumar is our Associate Director for Oracle HCM products. Harish brings 20 years of experience to the table, working with Oracle payroll clients, Oracle HCM clients, working through implementations, client partnerships. So Harish is going to join us today to discuss testing of Oracle payroll. So without further ado, Lavanya, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thanks, Art. Thanks everybody for joining. So as Art mentioned, today we are going to talk more about Oracle HCM Payroll. What are the different things you should be considering when it comes to validating payroll? And I'll have Harish talk a little bit about that based on his experience working with a lot of Oracle Cloud customers and payroll customers. And then we'll jump into the CloudTestr platform, how we are helping customers with not only data validation, but also functional regression testing for all the quarterly patch updates that are coming in. So I will first hand it over to Harish to, based on his experience, talk about how other customers that we've been working with do payroll validations. Harish, over to you.
Thanks, Lavanya. Good morning, everyone. Myself, Harish Kumar. I manage the Oracle HCM Cloud practice for Soneratech. And as part of my responsibilities, one of the key roles that I play is of providing support on the payroll front from a testing perspective, as well as provide functional and technical support for our Oracle Cloud payroll customers. And today, as part of this discussion, what we'll be focusing on is the key areas of doing a payroll testing. Why should we do payroll testing, and what is the importance of having a payroll testing done when Oracle releases the quarterly updates? If people who are attending today's session are familiar, prior to 2019, the payroll updates used to be released every month, which was very hectic and tedious for the customers to uptake and plan on the production environments because of the results that were coming out very bad because of the payroll product not being stable in the initial days. So I'll be covering three key areas on why we should be doing the testing as part of the quarterly release updates released from Oracle. So as you can see from the slide, there are three areas. One is payroll functional testing. Second one is the payroll's report testing. And the third one is the data validation for payroll. So we'll get into the payroll data validation as the last part. Before we get into the payroll data validation, we will basically cover the functional testing and what is the scope of functional testing. So the major area that we should focus on when we do the payroll functional testing is basically to do with the personal payment methods, the element entries that we enter for each element, whether it could be earnings, it could be deductions, managing the tax calculation cards, managing the individual balances. Subsequently, once all these things are set up, then we get into running the payroll process, run the recalculate payroll for the retroactive changes if some retroactivity has happened for the employees, calculate the payroll on those basis, calculate the prepayments, and in the end generate the pay slips, and then see what has come out when we have calculated all the payrolls. I can give you 2-3 examples on why we should basically do the functional testing when specifically we are focusing on the payroll modules. For example, what I have seen from the engagements that we have had with our existing cloud customers, when payrolls are processed, there is a big chance that the terminated employees are not included in the payroll. They are just ignored. So in the end, the business users will find it very difficult. Okay, I have run my payrolls, but in the end, the results are not matching. Some of the employees are getting missed. Where are those employees? I'm not able to figure that out. So what happens as part of our testing automation tool that we do, it actually brings out dot errors, which are actually ignored by the payroll, saying that, okay, in this payroll, these terminated employees, which were supposed to be calculated, are not calculated. So easily you can identify the erroneous employees which are not calculated as part of the payroll. That is one example when we do the functional testing. This is, I'm citing these things from my experience and how we have helped customers identify these problems. Second example is when we run the payroll pension automatic enrollment assessment process. Normally this particular process shouldn't take more than 10-15 minutes to run, but we have seen in multiple updates like 19B, which was in 2019, and 19C, the payroll pension automatic enrollment process took around 12 hours to complete the process. So finally, a bug was supposed to be raised with Oracle, and then they confirmed that it was a problem, and then a resolution was provided. So this was actually figured out using the CloudTestr automation tool, which was pretty easy to identify. Okay, the process just kick-started, but in the end, it took 12 hours. So what happened was we kick-started the process on a nightly schedule. When we came back the next day to see what is the end results, the end result log file showed that, okay, it took 12 hours, and this should have never happened when the payroll pension process enrollment was run. That is the second example. The third example is of quick pay. When we run quick pay for employees, which has net payment, earnings, employer tax, etc., all of a sudden, the statement of earnings that was calculated were all showing as zeros. So that was also a big problem that was reported to Oracle for one of the customers, and then the resolution was provided. So this is the particular scope on which we should be focusing on when we do functional testing. Any questions on the scope of functional testing that I explained before I move on to the reports testing?
You can move on, Harish. I think we'll take questions at the end.
Okay. So as part of the payroll report testing, most of the customers are not keen on executing the reports because they said, why should we do reports testing? It hardly matters to us, but that's not the real scenario. I can give 2 examples on why we should actually do this payroll reports testing, what we have outlined here. The payroll activity report, for example, is one of the key reports for any payroll customers. Payroll register report is also another key report for any of the payroll customers. The results that are populated when we run these 2 reports, I'm just taking only 2 examples because we have listed all these key reports that should be run as part of the reports testing. The end results that are populated do work as the input for the downstream process. So that could act as an input for any other integration that you might have on the system. You may have only the payroll module subscribed on the SaaS front, but the ERP or the other modules that you are working as of today is on on-prem. So the downstream process acts very important for the customers who are actually using the payroll report. So it's very much mandatory that we do the payroll reports testing, and that should be the key, one of the key areas when we carry out the quarterly functional regression testing. One of the other benefits that you get is if there are any corrections or changes before you pass on the values to the downstream process, those anomalies, we could actually nip it at the bud. It prevents the data loss. Also, it will help you in not passing the wrong data to the downstream process. All the errors can be resolved upfront. In this way, payroll report testing should be considered as one key area when quarterly updates are released from Oracle. So these are the 2 key areas that we have seen in our experience over the last 3-4 years working with multiple cloud payroll customers, where they have said, yes, these are the areas, and we are happy that these things are tested as part of the regression suits that we have in place. And then the last one that we have is the payroll data validation. So this particular payroll data validation is a tool that Sonera Tech has built in conjunction with the Center of Excellence and the product team from Oracle. So there had been multiple levels of discussions where Oracle themselves have come and said that yes, this tool is very much required for our payroll customers uh, who has got employees ranging from 75,000 to more than 120,000. So how this tool helps the end customers is basically validating the Oracle payroll updates that are pushed into the test environments before they move to the production environments. Hello, Lavanya, I'm audible?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so was there any disturbance in between?
No, you're fine. Go ahead, Harish.
Okay, so yeah, I was talking on the last point on the payroll data validation. So what I was saying was, whenever Oracle pushes a payroll patch or an update to the customer's test environment, there could be changes that comes with the Oracle updates. It could be the business logic that has changed, or it could be to do with the fast formulas, delivered fast formula, something has changed. So it could be anything in and around the payroll module. So what happens is there's some change. There is no mechanism to identify if the change was already existing in the environment before the Oracle update was applied. So how this payroll data validation helps the customer is you have a GUI wherein you can actually compare the end results of either the payroll activity report or the payroll register report before an Oracle patch is applied on the test environment and after an Oracle patch is applied. So when we do the data validation, you can clearly identify, okay, these are the 2-3 components of my statement of earnings where I see a discrepancy. So why should I see a discrepancy when there was no change that I have made as part of my configuration? So then ultimately it boils down to the scenario where, oh, now it has been confirmed that there was a change that was released from Oracle which has caused this problem. So in that way, it is very easy to identify this change. So we have one of our biggest retail customers in the US who has been using this on a frequent basis to identify these problems. Before this tool was provisioned to that customer, they used to spend weeks identifying the problems because it was all a manual effort. Now these things are done automatically in a span of 4 to 5 hours. For them, which took 5 to 10 business days, is getting over in 5 hours in a day. So which has been very productive from a payroll perspective. So these were the things that we should be focusing on when we carry out the functional and regression testing on the payroll module. So that's what I wanted to explain and call out in this discussion. Lavanya, over to you.
Thanks, Harish. So we talked specifically about the payroll. Just wanted to quickly cover, in terms of the overall cloud applications continuous delivery. So there are definitely benefits with this, but also new responsibilities, right? For customers who have moved to cloud, you do have faster pace of change that is coming in. You need to adopt these new changes much faster, sometimes monthly, sometimes quarterly. And it's not just the changes coming in from your cloud provider, but also changes that might be happening from your upstream, downstream systems or third-party applications that you might have, like tax updates and other things. So keeping in mind all those things need to be made sure that you're not running into issues when things go into production, considering that these changes are pushed automatically at a particular schedule, whether you've tested it or not, whether you've validated it or not, they go into production, right? So some of the challenges that we've seen customers face is in the continuous testing and validation requirement for the cloud applications. And that is where we are helping a lot of our customers, not only from a functional testing standpoint, regression testing. We also do end-to-end validations as well to ensure that you're able to test the whole data flow from from the beginning and to traversing through different modules and applications as well. As Harish was pointing out, it could be you're running certain things in HR systems and then having it getting processed through the project costing and billing and other areas as well, right? So you want to make sure that everything is working upstream, downstream, and not just functional testing that is being done. Because especially with payroll, it's so critical that if once it goes into production and you run into payroll issues, it creates a lot of problems in either resolving those or figuring out a workaround, spending a lot of time and effort by your teams that that might not be valuable, right? So how automation can help minimize these business disruptions. So a few things automation can help with this. It'll provide more agility in adapting to change. If there are new features that are coming in, you should be able to incorporate those much faster because you're really not spending too much time manually doing stuff. You're leveraging automation to do a lot of these things that are repeatable. There's a lot more predictability. You don't have to pick and choose what needs to be tested when a release gets pushed because of the time constraints or resource availability and all. With automation, you'll have a predictable coverage. You know that all your key business processes are being tested every time a change is getting pushed into production. So there is a lot more predictability and peace of mind when things go into production, that you know that at least all the critical processes are going to work. You'll have better quality rollouts. And one of the important things is you can free up your key personnel to focus on business critical tasks or evaluating the new features and functionality that are coming in, and how does it impact your business, how does it help your business, right? So you can focus more on business value versus constantly thinking about testing and validating and hoping and praying that everything looks good when things go into production, right? And last but not the least, you can also lower costs with automation because once you have everything automated, whether it's your functional testing, regression testing, or data testing, it kind of minimizes the amount of manual effort that is being spent by your team, and it completely lowers the total cost of quality for the organization as well. I just want to talk about a quick customer case study. So this is a customer integrated provider of construction, repair, and engineering services. And they have Oracle HCM Cloud, ERP Cloud, and PPM Cloud. So in terms of challenges, this customer had tried some automation before, but maintenance has been a big challenge. The IT team was spending a lot of time, and business team was spending a lot of time every quarter, almost 2,000 plus hours a quarter, to validate these applications. And even from a payroll standpoint, payroll data validation was pretty time consuming to make sure that from a data standpoint, everything looks good when the tests are run, end-to-end tests are run. Right, so so these guys have adopted automation for functional testing, regression testing, end-to-end testing, as well as payroll data validation. So now with automation in place, they are able to complete the testing within the 5 business days of quarterly update being pushed. Defects are detected early in the life cycle, so that SRs can be opened or resolution can be provided much faster. And there is a lot more peace of mind going into production releases, right? So one other key thing is the end-to-end life cycle that we talked about before, right? For example, you can orchestrate the whole test from creating the different hires, staging the time cards, and then processing any events like absences or termination or transfers and stuff, and then processing the payroll. You can run different payrolls, and then validating the results, right? Across payroll, validating it for the events, validating it for the costing and billing, and then signing off, right? So basically, with automation, not only you can cover functional testing of individual modules, you could also cover end-to-end testing including payroll functional testing as well as data testing, right? So this ensures that you have a good comprehensive coverage when it comes to testing that needs to be performed during the quarterly updates that are coming in, as well as if there are any in-between releases that are coming in that requires you to do some validations to ensure that everything is looking good. You can obviously leverage automation versus having to do things manually. So I want to talk about how CloudTestr platform is enabling this for both the release validation as well as payroll data validation. So the CloudTestr platform is an enterprise platform that supports different applications automation, including integrations, and we provide it as a service where you'll still get access to the platform where you can log in, you can look at the dashboards, you can download the test results, download the documentation, all the things that are important to you, you can still do that. Versus actually learning how to automate, maintain, and execute, right? All that is provided as part of the service. We've got hundreds of pre-built libraries available for all cloud applications as well as on-prem systems that helps us accelerate automating the implementation, cloud implementation that you might have. For example, we can actually automate for most of the customers, we can automate within 4 to 6 weeks of engaging with us. And every time there is a quarterly update that comes in, we can execute those tests within 2 to 5 business days of your pod getting updated. Right. So, and this, like I said, the automation can be leveraged for functional regression testing, integrations testing, end-to-end testing. And we also do some auto health checks to ensure that there are no process slowdowns or security breakdowns that are happening, right? So we'll ensure that all different security roles you might have configured and there is no breakdown in security, that, you know, your admin screens are becoming available to your employees and so on and so forth, right? So that's another important aspect. And it's pretty secure, hosted on Oracle Public Cloud Infrastructure, same place as your Oracle Cloud applications are hosted. So there is no latency because of connectivity from CloudTestr to the Oracle Cloud applications, right? It's pretty seamless and pretty secure since you already have Oracle Cloud applications that you're using. And in terms of payroll data validation, so this is a self-service tool that we provide for customers. It's an annual subscription price, and it provides a lot of details in terms of, what are the different variances at summary level, detail level, at employee level. And you can even set tolerances when you're doing this report. For example, if you want to set up some deduction, if it's okay if it is if the variance is under 0.1% or something like that, so that when you're running the report, we can ignore those. So this, with the click of a button, you're actually able to do payroll data validation, not just the functional testing, but you can actually even validate the data before and after a patch gets applied, and get the report in an email, so that you're able to feel more comfortable that there are no variances, or if there are variances, you can actually easily validate those as to why there is variance, and if you have to make some corrections associated with it. Right. So let me do a quick demo so that you can actually see it in action. So this is a payroll validation tool that I was talking about. So as soon as you log in, you'll get some instructions. Like I said, this is provided as self-service because of the criticality of payroll data. We provide access to your team to run it on their own, and it is pretty straightforward how you execute it. Right. So all you have to do is you have to pick the type of report it is, whether it's payroll register, payroll activity. You kind of upload the file before and after the release. Right. So you can actually just do payroll before patch, upload it, payroll after patch, upload it. You can set tolerances. Right, you can say employee tax reductions. I can, say it's okay if it is 0.1% off, add it. You can add that, okay, I want this value as long as it is under, 0.1%. or whatever values you want to put, right? So you can kind of even set up tolerances as well, right? So that when the report is run, you could actually see the details, right? So if you look at it here, you can see the details at summary level, at component level, at employee level, and we also highlight employees that have been terminated or new employees that got added between the reports that you're running, before and after reports, right? Because it's expected that there would be some variance if it's a terminated employee or new employee, right? So you can also go into details. What is the variation? Where are you seeing the variation, right? At an employee level. So this kind of gives you a good view of what is being run. You can also get emails of these reports as soon as the files are processed, right? So you don't have to sit and wait for the processing to happen. You should be able to get an email notification as soon as the files are done with the comparison Excel that has all the details for you, right? So so this kind of helps quite a bit in giving you peace of mind that not just that you've tested functionally, but you're also validating the data and identifying any issues with a click of a button, right? And depending on the file sizes, we've seen customers who've got file sizes that have 3 million plus records that process in an hour or in an hour or two. We've seen customers who've got much smaller files that processes much faster, right? Sometimes it's instantaneous, sometimes it might take 5-10 minutes to execute them, right? The bottom line is you can just run these tests much faster, and you can get the emails notification on the same to validate it, right? And in terms of for the functional testing, we also provide automation for functional validations as well that I was talking about before. So here you have the dashboard where you can see all the details of the tests that has been automated, how many have been completed, same thing with execution. You have defect status and all available here. So all the metrics are available at your fingertips by logging into the platform. You can also get automated test results files as well as test documentation. The documentation is auto-generated. So for example, I'm taking a quick example of one of the payroll tests, processing quick pay for an employee. So if you look at it here, we actually capture the screenshots as well while we are onboarding you to CloudTestr platform, and your documentation gets auto-generated, right? So if you look at it here, your documentation is always going to be up to date because we are updating it every time a test is updated, and it's very detailed. You have the screen and you have the steps that are getting performed, right? And same thing goes with the results files. When we execute the test, you get pretty detailed results. You can see the screenshots for the results as well, which you can download from the platform as well. Right, so even if you're not executing it manually, even if the automation is being leveraged, you should be able to validate pretty easily by going through the screens and the steps, right? Because it's pretty detailed. You get the screenshots for every test that is being performed. If something fails, then we also show that up front at the top. So this provides a lot more clarity for the business users to provide sign off that the release looks good. So in conjunction with the functional automation and end-to-end automation with the payroll data validation, you should be able to do a pretty comprehensive validation of your quarterly updates testing. Right. So why CloudTestr? Why a lot of our customers are subscribing to CloudTestr? This is the only automation platform that is available on Oracle Marketplace that has been certified by Oracle. We provide this as platform as a service, which means that you get access to the platform. You can do all the things that are important to you. But we also provide it as a service, so you don't have to learn how to automate, maintain, execute every time things are changing. It's a subscription and consumption-based pricing that we're providing. So you're only paying for what you're using. You're not paying for licenses or people or infrastructure or anything like that. It's just a subscription, and you'd only pay for what you're consuming. We have pre-built libraries for Oracle Cloud applications already, so it accelerates us to get you up and running faster. Payroll data validation tool. This is the only tool that is available for Oracle Cloud Payroll out there. And as Harish said, we have actually co-developed this in conjunction with the Oracle COE and product development teams to enable this to payroll customers. It is an enterprise platform. It supports not just your cloud applications, but if you want to test an end-to-end flow between cloud, non-cloud integrations and all, the single platform should be able to help with that. We also do automated data management. We onboard customers within 4 to 6 weeks, and executions could happen under 5 days. We also have automated change management in the sense that you don't have to read through the release notes and figure out what is coming in. We will share the impact analysis report as part of the service. We also do auto health checks to make sure that there are no process slowdowns or security breakdowns that are happening. Documentation is auto-generated, so nothing's ever going to go stale. If changes are coming in every quarter, we don't want your test documentation to become stale, right? So this kind of fixes that problem. Integrations are supported, and audit support is available for both internal and external audits. Right, so it's pretty comprehensive. We kind of make testing a non-event for you every time there is a quarterly update that comes in, so that your teams don't have to worry too much about what needs to be tested, how much testing is required, did we miss something, and hoping that everything goes well when things go into production. So we kind of taking away all that guesswork, making it a non-event every time changes are coming in. So, so we can open it up for Q&A. That's all we had to cover in the session. So anybody who's got questions, please post them on the Q&A section, and we'll be able to start answering those.
Sounds good, Lavanya, and thank you to Lavanya and Harish. So Lavanya, first question that came in is, are there any limitations or iteration limitations on running the payroll validation tool file compares?
So limitations, no as such, but so we can share the templates that work, but usually we have set it up so that the out of the box template should work. But sometimes we have seen that there might be some variance in how the customer file looks like. So what we do is, for the first 1 or 2 runs, so we work with the clients to ensure that the reports that are getting generated by the customer can work seamlessly with the tool. But as such, there are no other limitations. It's just making sure that we are using the right file format, and we are able to do the comparison. One other point I want to make is, so this is more for post-implementation. So we are doing more post-implementation before and after apple-to-apple comparison. This is not for parallel testing during implementation at this time. We're working on enhancing it for that, but currently it's more for post-implementation quarterly update validations.
Okay, I think the question was more around the number of times, because the next question is about, it's because you had mentioned it's a self-service tool. So maybe you can delve into aspects of the self-service. You know, it's a tool that clients can use. But I think the first question is, can a client who's using it as a self-service tool, can they run it as often as they would like, or are there limitations there?
No. Okay, I got it. No, there are no limitations. You can run it as many times you want. It's an annual subscription, and you can. It's not based on the number of runs.
Gotcha. Okay. The next question is regarding file size. What file size can the platform support from a payroll processing perspective?
Oh, we have tested it with the most extreme numbers. We should be able to handle most file sizes at this point, because we've run it for customers who've got almost 300,000 plus W2s that get run, and 3 million plus records with almost 500 MB plus file sizes. So I would say that, you know, to the most extent, all customers we should be able to cover in terms of there shouldn't be any limitation on that.
Okay, and then maybe you can. This is just kind of a follow-up to that. If you have that large 300,000 user base, what's then kind of the typical processing time for that sort of file?
Sure. So the processing time for that is about 1 to 2 hours that we've seen to process it, and then the email gets sent out after the processing is completed.
Gotcha. Okay. Here's a question that came in from one of the attendees. How do we handle the sensitiveness of the data? Right, it's payroll data. So how is that handled?
Right. So that is the reason we're providing it as a self-service. So it would be run by your own employees. We will not be accessing the data at all, right? So it's kind of controlled by your team.
Gotcha. Okay. And then you had talked a little bit about CloudTestr tool. Maybe you can kind of explain to folks the difference between CloudTestr and the payroll validation tool real quick,
Sure.
just so everybody's clear.
Sure. So payroll validation is more of a payroll data validation. This is more data validations that we are performing. It's part of CloudTestr. It's just a different application that we have of it that we provide as self-service. But the CloudTestr in general is used for functional regression and end-to-end testing that you would be performing. Every time there is a quarterly update that comes in, you want to ensure that all your key processes are working as desired, like you're able to hire an employee properly, rehire an employee, terminate. You can do an end-to-end flow of staging a time card, hiring an employee, adding events, and then processing payroll, and processing it all the way through finance systems and all, right? So basically CloudTestr can automate all that from a functional regression and end-to-end testing as well as integrations testing. But the payroll data validation is more focused on data validation. It's basically you're comparing the data of payroll before and after a release.
Okay, great. Thank you. I don't think there's no further questions at this point, Lavanya.
Okay. Great. So then we can actually share the presentation and the replay of this webinar. If there are further questions, please do reach out to us at the CloudTestr@sonaratech.com or visit our website. We also have a marketplace link if you want to go look at Oracle Cloud Marketplace. And we also have the points of contact details here. So if you'd like to subscribe to either payroll validation tool, or you want to look at CloudTestr for your quarterly updates release validation, please reach out to us and we'll be able to provide more details in terms of the pricing and how it works initially during onboarding as well as continuously when quarterly updates are coming in. So we've got pretty defined process and quite a few enterprise customers are leveraging CloudTestr for their quarterly updates as well as payroll data validation.
Okay. So yeah, there's no further questions. So I think that will end today's webinar. Thank you all for attending. We really appreciate it. Hope you found it informative and have a great rest of the day. Thank you, everyone.